Thank you for coming to a nice sunny day. Come out to learn about nutrition and your health. And today is a special topic that I think many of us have an interest in that. I know I do. My name is Debbie, and you may have received an email from me. So if you didn't and you were told by a friend and you want to get on our list for future programs, make sure you do fill out that form that you get at the end. Give us feedback on what topics you'd like to hear from. And today we're going to have 6 recipes that you have in a handout and a little note sheet that you can write and some information that the speaker will refer to. There's an evaluation form that's a small form that you can complete at the end. And today some of the foods that we are demonstrating, foods were demonstrated or provided by Apple Valley Natural Foods in Westmont. It's a place where you can get some of the ingredients. If you're not familiar with it, it's off of Ogden Avenue in St. James Shopping Center. How many are here for the very first time? Oh, great. Well, thank you for coming. It's on a special, nice day to be outside working in the garden or whatever. So today we're going to have the speaker talk to you about inflammation, and we're going to demonstrate foods afterwards. You'll get to taste test all of them. And that way you can decide what you want to do at home. Our speaker today is Dr. Barbara Ballar, and she's a medical doctor. She also has a master's in public health, so I think she's very qualified to speak on this topic. And she also has a law degree, so I don't know too many people have all those initials after one's name. In my profession as a dietitian, I know some people have like a lot of initials after their name. But she's definitely very much into nutrition and health and preventive measures. And that's what's really important about this topic, because we can prevent inflammation, and we can also try to reverse some of the symptoms that we might be experiencing if we are. So thank you so much for coming. And without further ado, Dr. Ballar.
What are the what? Oh, thank you. Okay, so the only thing is I'm just going to have to go there to move it all the time. I don't have a remote. So that's okay. I can do it. I just don't want to block the screen. So that's the best with the lighting. That can't go off?
We can move this over here if you want, the laptop.
No, it won't all reach, I don't think. So can that lighting go off? No? Okay. Hi. Okay, so I certainly want to welcome you to everyone here in this session of Adventures in Vegetarian Cooking. And I'm so glad you came. So as I just mentioned, I'm going to be like darting over to move the slides every so often. But as you know, our topic for today is inflammation. So let me see how this works now. That's your welcome slide. And it's a word that you may be very familiar with, but because we're a nation of inflammation. So it's time for a wake-up call. And this should be louder, but so if someone were to ask you, I can't move this, huh? If someone were to ask you to describe or explain inflammation, most folks mainly know what they feel in their body, but can't really explain what it's all about, why we experience it, or how we can avoid it. So I became very interested in this topic, and much to my sad surprise, I gotta turn my cell phone off here. Much to my sad surprise, I could not find good medical research on this subject, and it's only within the last year that I have actually heard that inflammation is the cause of all disease. I reviewed a few articles online. I went to the bookstore, went to the library, but I was amazed on how little I could find on the subject. So just bear with me in the beginning if there's some things you're like, okay, I don't know what she's talking about. but we're going to be covering some basic physiology, immunology, and pathology to start with, to give you more understanding as to what inflammation actually is. This slide gives you a definition. Basically, it's saying inflammation is an important protective process for the host. It's a stereotyped response in a living animal to a variety of injuries that involves the vasomotor or vascular, put my glasses on here, the vascular, various inflammatory cells, and potent chemical mediators. So here's a definition on the next slide that I recall from medical school. And basically, it's, as you see on the bottom there, rubor, tumor, and dolor, and color. That is that when a body is hot to touch, so that's color, and it's red in appearance, that's rubor, and it appears swollen, that's tumor, and is painful, that's dolor. So inflammation is both a blessing and a curse. Actually, let me see. Okay. So, as I said, it's both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it's a built-in mechanism of response to an insult, physical or I want to say like traumatic, and it's but it becomes a curse when it's a built-in mechanism of response to an insult, injury, or infection, I should say. So that's the beneficial acute inflammation. There's two kinds, but it's a curse when it becomes a chronic state in the body. So this shows you there's two kinds of inflammation, acute and chronic. And the acute is a rapid response to an injury or some foreign substance that's designated to deliver leukocytes, you'll find out, are white blood cells, and plasma proteins to the site of injury. So I'll explain these terms as we go on. But the onset of acute inflammation is rapid, and the duration is short, few minutes to few days, and that's kind of beneficial, that acute inflammation. It's a healthy response. But when you have chronic inflammation, that's a prolonged duration in which active inflammation occurs, and there's tissue injury, and the healing process is supposed to be going on simultaneously, but it's insidious. That means it's subtle. It kind of gradually comes on you, chronic inflammation. And that's long, like days to years. So, so again, this is just a little bit that tells you about, I could do this, acute inflammation is the immediate and early response to injury, and a critical function of this type of response is to develop, deliver the white blood cells to the site of the injury, where they help clear invading infections and agents, as well as break down necrotic tissue, that's dead tissue. And acute inflammation is your first line of defense against any injury. And just keep hanging on, and this will fit together. So the causes can be a trauma, or crushing or cutting to your body, or some chemical injury. Also can be a result of getting radiation therapy, can be if you're exposed to acids or alkalines, and any kind of ultraviolet radiation, too much, you get sunburn, ionizing radiation, heat, any injuries caused by heat or cold, like frostbite and the extreme, like I said, sunburn. And then chronic inflammation is a response to prolonged problems, and what's involved there are what's called T helper lymphocytes, and they feature recruitment and activation of other T and B lymphocytes, macrophages, other types of white blood cells. Some of the symptoms of chronic inflammation is it's an ongoing, irritating pain in the body, like the joints or muscles. It can be allergies or asthma, especially when they keep getting worse, high blood pressure or blood sugar problems, ulcers and irritable bowel syndrome, constant fatigue or lethargy, and skin problems or bloodshot eyes. So basically, you see from this slide, it's just a so it's just an irritation, aggravation, distress disease. So just as this, okay. So just as the slide says, inflammation is the new silent killer, and we would like to focus even just a little on helping to reduce its bad effects on your body and in your life. So let's start with a simple illustration. And that is, say you're sliding down the wooden banister and you get a sliver in your finger. So the splinter enters your finger, and so now you've made an entrance point or route for bacteria and virus to enter your body. Remember, folks, the best barrier you have to any kind of infection is intact skin. But once that barrier is broken, your immune system will be the main system that will help you ultimately to conquer the invasion. So you have this splinter, which is the foreign body, and it initiates the inflammatory response to combat the pathogens. The word pathogen means it can be something that's either a fungus or bacterial or a parasite or a virus. Then the inflammatory, after this foreign body enters, it triggers the damaged cells. They respond by releasing chemical alarm signals. Now, without inflammation, infections would go unchecked and wounds would never heal, and injured tissue might remain permanent festering sores. So these signals cause more fluid than normal to leak out of the capillaries near the injury, which results in the swelling that you see. For example, like when you get an ankle sprain and you're surprised how much that puffs up. Well, that's all this inflammatory reaction going on. So once those chemical alarm signals are released, then white blood cells, which are the neutrophils, the eosinophils, basophils, they move from the blood into the injured area through the walls of swollen, leaky capillaries. Now, what is a capillary? A capillary is a kind of a fine branching blood vessel. So if you have veins and arteries, and then when they branch out to smaller, it's venules and arterioles. And a capillary connects a network between the arterioles and venules, and that's all this things are able to kind of secrete through. So these white blood cells, along with macrophages, attack the invading pathogens, which we said could be fungal, bacterial, virus, parasite, and they consume dead and infected cells. So we talked about the white blood cells, macrophages. Okay, what is a macrophage? Let me see, I had a picture of one here somewhere, but I think it's a little bit later, so let me back up. Okay, so a macrophage, the word macro means like big, a big eater, and phage means to eat. So they're a type of white blood cell, but what the macrophage do, they engulf and digest cellular debris, foreign substance, microbes, cancer cells, and anything else that doesn't have the type of proteins specific to healthy body cells on the surface. So they do this by a process called phagocytosis. They're kind of the Pac-Man of your system, chomping around. So these large phagocytes are found in essentially all tissues, where they constantly patrol for potential pathogens that may have come in. So they just move like little amoebas throughout your blood system, just kind of slowly moving along in case they see anything that isn't healthy tissue protein. So then additionally, the temperature of the area around the injury increases because heat will suppress bacterial growth. It will kill the bacteria. So, you get a fever, and sometimes I would suggest that you don't always want to take a Tylenol too early as soon as you know that you have a fever. It's almost better to try and cope with it because its effect is to kill, the organisms and things. So as you can see from this next slide, then there are mediators. This is a little complicated, so I won't get into detail, but I'm just laying the groundwork for you here. But these mediators can be secreted from storage in the cell, which is the top picture there, and then others are just present, ready for action in the plasma. Plasma is produced through the liver. So the plasma actually is the liquid part of blood. If you spin blood down, the plasma settles to the top. It's the clear kind of yellow part, and the red blood cells fall to the bottom. So one of my part-time jobs is as a medical director at a plasma center. So folks come in and they get paid to donate their plasma, because there's no such thing yet as synthetic plasma. A lot of people depend on, lifelong to receive this plasma from people who donate it. So you see from this slide, the big players involved in the inflammation battle are platelets, something called mast cells, leukocytes, macrophages. They all secrete beneficial transmitters, and there's all the transmitters are on this side. There's mediators and where they come from. So this slide you can see is clear, but you must have heard of like histamine. Take that. That's a big one. Your body has histamine, and it gets released when there's an injury. That's why, for example, we'll say on the next slide, have you ever had a bee sting? Anyway, so if you've ever had a bee sting, for example, within no time, you know that bee sting, the puncture site swells up significantly. But that's due partially to your own body secreting the histamine. That's why you take Benadryl, which is an antihistamine, to reduce the itching and the swelling. So this slide is kind of complicated again, and maybe in medical school you get this in a month or two, but basically it's called the complement system, and it's composed of its components that are in the plasma that are released along when you have an injury or infection to form clots if it's needed for coagulation to stop bleeding if you have an injury. So that's known as the complement system, but it's a whole cascade. And that blue thing is an antigen. That'd be like the foreign body. I want to say if it's like tetanus or whatever that enters, and then you have antibodies in your system that are trying to take care of that, so they attach and they get all this cascade of things going that will cleave things, and it's very complicated and very important. Even when you talk about some of this, you're just like, whew, just amazed what God has in mind at such a finite level that we barely scratch the surface of knowing. Okay, so what I was saying earlier about a phagocytic or a macrophage, this is a little bit, if you'd look like under a microscope, I guess more than theoretically, these are the phagocytic cells that are known as macrophages. Again, they're the white blood cell Pac-Men. They come in, and with their long tentacles, they can catch anything that's kind of around that doesn't belong there, or they digest the dead tissue, or dead bacteria, or any other debris that's around. So again, here we see just kind of a recap of the steps of what happens in kind of good inflammation, okay, acute inflammation. So you have your triggering insult or injury, you see across the top, which it can be food or other factors, and you have a reaction. And then cells are activated to do their duty. Mediators are released, and we see the resultant effects, which is inflammation, tissue damage, swelling, redness, pain, just the things that, I don't know if anybody here remembers medications like Celebrex and Vioxx. They were taken off the market, but they're prostaglandin inhibitors, and they were, I saw many patients who really liked the benefits of those medications, but then they found some connection, I think, to some cardiac problems, so they took it off the market. But they're prostaglandin inhibitors, or they're called COX-2 inhibitors. So in any case, there's medications around, but our talk is not so much to say what medications are beneficial. Now, I want to show you this book. Anybody can look at it later. It's a little heavy, but it's Robbins' Pathological Basis of Disease. And when I was in medical school, I always said if I only had to have one book through my entire life in medicine and one subject, it would be this. It would be Robbins' Pathology. And to my amazement, so, I mean, this book tells you the cause of every single disease that we know to date. And it's, I think, the latest edition. So, but to my amazement, such an extensive book that all of medicine relies on, it's one of the Bibles of medicine, that it has just a few sentences on this culprit. On page 100, hidden away, I saw it, and it says, excessive inflammation is the underlying cause of most human diseases described throughout this book. So isn't that interesting? Just tucked away there when, you know, we think there's all other kinds of reasons. But, I mean, there's factors like what you inherit. Sometimes you can't change your genes. Sometimes there's environmental. But there's things you can control. And we're saying the more you can control inflammation in your body, the better off you will be. On the other hand, okay, so we said, again, inflammation is the underlying cause of most human diseases described throughout this book. Conversely, if you have a defect in your inflammatory response in your body, that's going to make you more susceptible to many infections. And the most common cause of defective inflammation is leukocyte deficiency. That means you don't have enough white blood cells. And what happens is, resulting from replacement of the bone marrow by, you hear people and little kids that get leukemias and metastatic tumors and suppression of the bone marrow. That can happen because of therapies for cancer, or if you receive if you're an organ recipient and there's graft rejection. Then finally, there's a separate a smaller category, which are rare genetic disorders that affect the white blood cells, and you're unable to kill bacteria. I think those are the people that sometimes you hear the boy in the bubble. You know, they can't be exposed to any germs in the environment because genetically they're unable to handle it. So as well, there are people who have deficiencies in that complement system or clotting system. You've heard of people with bleeding disorders, and that results in your inability for your immune system to combat infection. So the next time that you get a reaction of redness, swelling, pain, and heat, be thankful, because that means that your immune system is producing a beneficial inflammatory response. But, so that's the acute stage. And this again shows, this slide, there's a whole host of diseases that are associated with striking the body with inflammation. So, like on this slide, again, you have your triggering mechanisms. Maybe it's some food that you have an allergic reaction to, or you have a reaction to, and so you get an inflammatory response. Or it can be, as I said, a problem with your immune system. There's like 5 immune globulins that are beneficial in your body in the inflammatory response. So it's the IgG, immunoglobulin G, you've probably heard of that, IgA, if you're deficient in any of those. So they will trigger the cellular activation and get those white blood cells out there, the eosinophils, the macrophages, all these things, and that stimulates the mediator releases like the histamine, prostaglandins. That's why Celebrex was a prostaglandin inhibitor. So then you end up with the physiological effects, which is inflammation, tissue damage, you know, smooth muscle contraction, the swelling, excess mucus, more things going on. The cells, more increased gut permeability. Things are passing in and out too easily. This just shows you on this model, when you follow all this, some of the diseases that we find are related to inflammation. Okay, migraine headaches, depression, hives, you know, the release of histamine, fibromyalgia, certainly inflammatory arthritis. You can see all this Crohn's, interstitial cystitis, asthma, GERD or reflux, epilepsy. Those are some of the diseases. So as I said, which came first then, the chicken or the egg? Does disease cause inflammation, or does the presence of inflammation result in disease? It appears that chronic inflammation, little by little, leads to several diseases and conditions. Then there's also literally hundreds of autoimmune diseases. You've heard people get Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or there's autoimmune thyroid diseases, and nearly all of them have inflammation as one of their signs. As I said, for example, rheumatoid arthritis, celiac disease, Graves' disease, lupus, psoriasis, Addison's disease, fibromyalgia, just to name a few. So we see other disease states that are caused by inflammation, cancer, cardiovascular problems, Alzheimer's, pulmonary diseases, arthritis, autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases, Parkinson's, diabetes. So, excuse me, maybe I'll take a drink here. So having kind of set this foundational background information, we're going to progress to how can we fight chronic inflammation? Because we said acute is beneficial, but it's when it's slow and chronic that you end up with diseases. So how often have you heard so I'm saying, it's the secret killer. Inflammation is linked to Alzheimer's, cancer, depression, heart attacks, other diseases. What can you do to fight it? So how many times have you heard it said that you are what you eat? But it is absolutely true. Here we have, let food be thy medicine. I like that. And medicine be thy food. Here this guy is saying, don't forget you are what you eat. He said, well, I need to eat a skinny person. But every time you eat or drink, you're either feeding disease or fighting it. And you are what you eat. Here it says every 35 days your skin replaces itself. Your liver replaces its cells in about a month. Your body makes these new cells from the food you eat. What you eat literally becomes you. So you have a choice in what you're made of. Okay, so I was saying the other day, actually I was trying to go to the library to see if I could find more. So the other day the weather was very enjoyable, so I was walking down the LaGrange business area, and I noticed, all the people outside enjoying the weather, and they're eating outdoors in these restaurants. And I'm looking at what they're having, and it's ice cream and pizza and tacos and hamburgers and kids with candy treats. The stores just lure us to things that are heavy laden with sugar and so many unhealthy things, it's mind-boggling. I think I saw something on the news today. I mean, I can't tell you how many. They said statistics, and I believed it, as to how many pizzas are being served and made like in a minute in the U.S. or something. They say the most popular food that kids eat is pizza. How disgusting is that? It's really sad. So anyway, I have here a sodium sidebar. Oh, yeah. On this slide, you can see, the pizza, the fries, the sugar, cookies, bakery stuff. And this Roman noodles, I think they call them. There's ramen noodles, ramen. Anyway, I see people at lunch sometimes. That's like a bomb. It may as well be a total cow salt lick. It's at least 50% sodium. But I don't want to get on the sidebar. But, there's so many things that I say to myself, I know God did not mean for this. So you tell me, did God mean for every single person to have high blood pressure? No, I don't think so. So it's a scam by the food industry and in our society. That's why everything you pick up, at least look at how much sodium. Yeah, we can say salt and other things, but look at how much sodium. If anything is more than 5% sodium, I drop it like it's a bomb. I will have nothing to do with it. And you pick up things like I see people, at work who they're doing their lunch by the microwave, and they'll throw the container in the garbage, and I look, and it's like 42% sodium, 35. All these frozen food stuff, don't go with frozen foods. A raw diet is the best thing. We know that. But anything, it's just look at the sodium content, because it's just a scam. Everybody has high blood pressure because you retain more fluid. So pay close attention to your how much sodium you're having. Campbell's soup, people think, oh, how healthy could that be? Just look at the label, 32%, 35%, on and on. How's that? Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And then I'm not even going to get into the subject. This slide, I can't even begin to talk about the topic of obesity. That's, we could talk more, another talk for days on that, but especially the damage we do to our kids. These slides may be a little amusing, but there's nothing funny about dealing with obesity. So, how do we fight inflammation? As you guessed, mainly with food. I could give you many, many slides that research has confirmed for us that foods are antioxidants and anti-inflammatory foods for and in our body. I actually gave Deb a handout which she made, and I think you may have it, is a 3-page that says anti-inflammatory pantry list. So that's just for you to refer to. This is kind of things that you could stock in your fridge and your pantry. There also is a book out there called, in the Dummy series, called Anti-Inflammation Diet for Dummies that you can order online. And you also find online, there's many inflammatory recipes available in books online, but you're going to get a lot of good stuff here today also, for sure. So on this next slide, I'm just going to the following few slides are just give a little detail on the benefits of just a few of the anti-inflammatory foods that you can choose to add to your daily diet. And so I'm going to go back to that other one. Let me see here. I was looking at this for myself, and I don't know if this was the slide. I think it was another one. But, I want to humbly say I went through that slide, and that's the stuff I eat. That's like almost the stuff I eat every day to some degree or another, and in bigger quantities. So I was thanking God. But, let's go with, for example, just avocados. I mean, not necessarily, guacamole, but that's not too bad because there's tomatoes in there, there's onions in there, so that's not too bad. But just an avocado, you can see some of the benefits here. They serve as a significant source of monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, lowers cholesterol and the risk for heart disease. In addition, some of the benefits are avocados reduce inflammation, control blood sugar and blood pressure, reduce chances of cataracts and macular degeneration, prevent birth defects, reduce certain cancers, especially ones of prostate, mouth, and skin, improves good digestion, helps your bowel habits, boosts your immune system, keeps skin glowing, reduce the risk of depression. Isn't that something, how God would build that in a food? And it strengthens bone and reduces the risk of fractures. Then if we look at just another, celery. I heard somebody say it takes more calories to eat it than what you get from it, but there's 10 things on celery. That list was so small that I put them on the side. Lowers high cholesterol, lowers inflammation, helps prevent or treat high blood pressure, helps prevent ulcers, protects your liver. It's good for weight loss, boosts your digestion, reduces bloating, has antimicrobial properties so you can fight infection, helps urinary tract infections. I usually tell people cranberries, and there's a science to that, but this is new to me, and may help protect from cancer. Then I'll read the small writing for you here. Like beets, they're known for their deep red color, and beets contain an antioxidant it's betalain, and that's highly anti-inflammatory and aids in cell repair. And then the cruciferous greens like kale, collard, bok choy, those vegetables contain flavonoid compounds that aid in restoring cellular health and fight inflammation. They're also rich in micronutrients, vitamins A, C, and K. Pineapple is really good if you have a sinus infection or for respiratory things, but it's been shown to play an important part in immune system health due to the presence of the bromelain. So bromelain can help clotting, improve heart health, and it's been called nature's aspirin. Pineapple's also high in vitamin C and B1, potassium, and other phytonutrients that fight disease. Again, celery we talked about. Here's that statement. An old age saying says, it takes more calories to eat a piece of celery than celery has to begin with. But it's good, it's high in potassium, and it flushes out toxins out of the cells. So I tell patients every single day, I have many statements I say every day. And some of them are like, the less government in your face, the better off you are, but that has nothing to do with this. And then I tell patients, we're all terminal, the best of us, whatever's going on, because some people will jump, on things that I tell them, but I'm like, so I tell patients every day also that you can never separate the mind from the body. So our attitude, this was the list that I said I looked at, and I eat tons of nuts every day. I have avocado every day. I have spinach salad every day for lunch. I put cherries in my yogurt in the morning. It's just, I put the pineapple, I put a million things in with yogurt every morning. So this right side, or left side, I guess, says things that are beneficial. And then the right side are things that you probably know cause inflammation. This thing called casein, they use it in bakery and treats and muffins and bread and casein. Meat, dairy, and eggs. Processed meats has got to be the worst thing in the world that you can eat. If you ever go to like Jewel and you say, oh, you want some salami or whatever you want sliced, and they always, I was getting it for someone else, and they always give you the first slice to see if it's right or you taste it. I was like, oh, no way would I eat that, but I was getting it for someone else. So anyway, processed meats, the nitrates, hot dogs have got to be, again, the worst thing in the world, too. Fried food, syrup and soft drinks, fast foods, you name it. So our attitude in life really is what we have to deal with and will determine how stress may affect our body. So besides diet, there are many positive things that you can do and be involved in life that boost your immune system. This slide just kind of talks about, how stress affects the body. And has anybody ever heard or listened to TED Talks? So there's one or two TED Talks out there which it kind of changed my idea about stress, because if you ask everybody, it seems, in today's world, they say, well, how are you? And what do they say? They say, busy, busy. You hear everybody's busy, as if it's like some kind of admirable thing to be so blasted busy. I don't want to be able to say that, And then the other thing, everybody you ask, they say, oh, man, I'm so stressed. Every patient that sits on the chair in front of me, they are stressed. So I guess we're all stressed. But it's interesting, there's a TED Talk, they've done some research now that's kind of changing the idea of stress. Stress is not so bad in itself. You can look for the TED Talk, I should know the name for you. But it's our reaction to stress, of course. But here it has how stress affects the body. I want to read this statement. Modern medicine, which once treated the connection between emotions and physical health with skepticism, has come to appreciate the closely linked relationship of mind and body. A wide variety, what is it? It says in the writings of Ellen G. White, a person is usually about as sick as they determine themselves to be. But I'm deviating. A wide variety of maladies, including stomach upset, hives, and even heart disease, are linked to the effects of emotional stress. But although the relationship between stress and immune function is being studied by a number of different types of scientists, so far it is not a major area of research for immunologists. So they haven't connected it, I think, to what's happening with inflammation totally yet. But, the things that stress can affect the body. You can have skin rashes, and you get, people come in like, I'm saying you never separate the mind from the body. Well, why you got diarrhea all the time? You probably, nervous wreck. Why are you getting migraines? Why do you get the hives? Why can't you sleep? Why, stress can affect the joints and increase inflammation. And so these are, how stress affects the body. But I wasn't focusing on that. What I wanted to say, besides diet, there are many positive things that you can do and be involved with in life that boost your immune system. Of course, if you boost your immune system, you're going to assist yourself in having good, active inflammatory defenses, and you can reduce the occurrence of chronic inflammatory disease. So, let me begin with something as simple as singing, okay? Blood levels of immunoglobulins were measured from both the choir members and the audience before and after performance. And as you might expect, the blood levels were favorably increased. The immunoglobulins in the immune system were increased in the singers, while the observers had no change in their blood levels. So I'm just saying, sing often and whenever you can. I've gotten to do it now. You know how they say sing in the shower, but if you really think about it, singing is so beneficial. It's not, what's the saying go? If it was just the birds that could sing best in the forest, then you wouldn't hear that many or something. I don't know. There's a quote I'm not saying properly. But in any case, singing, if you think about it, it improves your breathing, it helps your lungs, it improves your posture. There's just a lot of good benefits, and it lifts your spirits. So just, even if you don't feel like it, just make yourself sing, and you'll see. You don't have to have a great voice. So this next thing I just kind of put, give your immune system a boost. I think there's supposed to be something here. So sign up with the Park District and take Tai Chi. I really recommend that, especially for people you'd consider a little more mature, because it's very slow, purposeful movements and gives you a lot of body control and teaches you that if you're going to fall, how to fall properly. Or I tell a lot of patients, I end up having to do this like 50 times every day. So I have to, when I do neurological exam, I say stand on one foot. Okay, so I could probably stand here for hours like this because I do this so many times a day. Now, if many of you try, well, you can't see that I'm doing it, but I am. And then, then I have people walk heel to toe, and they should be able to walk like this with no problem, a straight line. Then you put your feet together, close your eyes, put your arms out, and see if you sway at all. But the point is you can do things to improve your immune system and your neurological system and balance. Fall is like the number one thing for elderly people that kind of can take them halfway down the tubes. So you want to work on your neurological system. Like I'll tell some patients, just put the 2 soup cans in front of you and then make it a little hard to reach them and go on one foot and try and reach over for that can and see if you can pick it up. There's things you can do. What I do every morning, if you would see me, you'd think this is crazy, but everybody has a routine, but for me, when I have a reason to go every morning from upstairs to downstairs at home, and every single day I turn around and I go downstairs with my eyes closed, because I'm challenging myself. Now there's it backwards, of course, well, but you figure out things that you can do, whatever that might be, but I do that. It's just so many things that you can try and just do little practice things to challenge your immune system. Don't do everything the same. So as this slide says, drink more water. I said sign up with the Park District, take some courses or Tai Chi. It's just a few bucks and you'll get just a huge investment in your improved balance. Most Park Districts have a senior discount. And so needless to say, our God has made us to be relational. So you improve your health also as you interact personally and socially with others. I love to see folks who have retirement time volunteer and meet with other folks to socialize and chat. I don't recommend McDonald's, but it's really great when you go there in the morning and you see very often, mostly these guys, retired guys, they'll take a whole table section and they're chit-and-chatting. It is so healthy because otherwise, some of these guys, they'd be living by themselves and relating to no one. So there's a good benefit. So anyway, I'm just throwing some tips at you to boost that immune system. Go out and mingle. Make yourself do it. Listen to Beethoven. It's shown the effects of Beethoven has on the brain. That's why I have a picture of him there. Turn down the volume. Don't have things too loud. Look on the bright side in life. Eat like Peter Rabbit, the vegetables. Laugh out loud. Challenge your brain. They have, if anybody uses applications or the computer or laptop, it's called FitBrains, where you can do a lot of little performances of testing, where it's called FitBrains. Maybe just write it down and research it sometime on your computer. It doesn't cost anything, and you can do these little tests of trying to take the numbers from -0 to 1, 2, 3, and take them in order when they're all mixed up. And then at the end, it gives you a little scoring and shows how you compare to people in your age group, and that can be a little discouraging, but then you keep working on it, So anyway, Move your body, but learn how to relax. Put the night light out. Your bedroom should really be as dark as possible at night. Stay away from sugar. Feast on fish for some of the benefits there, but we're saying things that fish that have fins and scales, not the ones that are the garbage scavengers like lobsters and shrimp and stuff in the bottom of the ocean. Get your vitamin D level checked. Everybody, just like they said cholesterol, and that's a whole nother big scam I don't want to start talking about. But nobody makes more money than the pharmaceutical companies, and they would have everybody on medicines all the time. I think they develop a medicine and then they talk somebody else into developing a disease to go along with that. It's like now, if somebody was mad in the past, now it's anger and rage, and there's other psychiatric diseases when they're just normal reactions. Vitamin D, where all of us are in these buildings and work in buildings with artificial lights, we're just not out on the sun enough, so that if you check the majority of people, vitamin D levels, you'll find it's low. Ask your doctor sometime, check my vitamin D3 level, and you'll probably find that you're outside of the normal on the low end. And that's where you should take vitamin D. Everybody should be taking it every day. That's the only thing I take is one vitamin D every day. Minimum 1,000, 2,000. I should take it twice a day. Sometimes I do. But anyway, eat more mushrooms. Of course, drink water, unquestionably. I wish when you walk out here today, you'd say, I swear off soda forever. I'm never drinking any soda. That's got to be one of the biggest connections for our diabetes things and obesity. Avoid tobacco smoke. Make more love when you can. Consume friendly bacteria. Right now, we're washing everything and getting rid of all the bacteria. It's a good idea to go in the garden and get some dirt under your nails and in your hands. And don't be so afraid, like, if you drop something, there's going to be germs. We're causing so much. We're increasing the resistance of things so that we're susceptible to more things. I probably shouldn't talk about flu shots. I'll be deviating, but I don't recommend them. But in any case, I've never had one in my life, and I know the people that get them. But see, again, this is pharmaceutical companies push, 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 Doctors get incentive, I think, to give those flu shots. But in any case, the flu shots, the viruses are, and there's so much more bacteria and virus and everything, much more than us, so to say. And the vaccines they put out, maybe they cover for like 3 of the most common types. And those viruses, they mutate all the time and every season, so that, you're not covering for like 3% of the ones you'll be exposed to. And so the good fortune I have is that I'm getting exposed to so many things in small doses, because somebody comes in and they got this type of flu and this type of flu. And so I'm getting small doses of things, which I think causes my immune system to have to react a little bit. But we're using too many antibacterials, again, another subject. So this next slide, I guess, fortunately, unfortunately, is there some? So this next slide talks about the aging process in itself leads to a reduction of our immune response capability. So that's all the more important reason, but to have a good diet. But in turn, that contributes with aging, reducing your immune response. It contributes to more infections, more inflammatory disease, and more cancer. So there appears to be a connection between nutrition and immunity in the elderly, a form of malnutrition that is surprisingly common even in affluent countries. In the United States, it's known as micronutrient malnutrition. Micronutrient malnutrition is when a person is deficient in some essential vitamins and trace minerals which should be obtained from our diet. And the elderly, they seem to eat less frequent because they don't burn up as much calories or energy, and then they have less variety in their diets. It's kind of the same old thing. And so it's important to be active, whatever your age, eat regularly and well-balanced, and have, variety in your diet. So what are the early signs that you should watch for to curtail the bad effects of inflammation? As a doctor, I hear this question a lot. When a patient says to me, "Why am I tired all the time?" supposed to be snoring. So, but when they say, why am I tired all the time? Back in my mind, I think of inflammation. I think of the type of inflammation that is chronic, silent, low grade, and systemic because it's relatively mild and it's present throughout the entire body for long stretches of times. There's also evidence that links chronic inflammation to chronic fatigue syndrome, depression, and general fatigue. So do a little survey or inventory when you get home and restock with foods that are anti-inflammatories. You have the list. You should just go clean out, the stuff that you know is not good for you and see if you can add. And hopefully many of you do have a good portion of some of these things, but it's the beneficial anti-inflammatory foods that you should consider adding in some degree of variety to your weekly diet. This is the list. I won't read it to you, but we said you are what you eat. So make healthy choices. And you can see these are things that are shown through research to really be effective as anti-inflammatory foods in your diet. Pumpkins, onions, pumpkin seeds, I'm sure, spinach, sweet potatoes, watermelon, yams. You can read that list. The fruits, apple. I have one apple every single night. The best one I like is at Whole Foods, which I call Whole Paycheck, because every item that you pick up is automatically $5. But they're envy apples. They're going to come out again, and they're the most expensive ones, $1.29 a pound or something. But they're coming out again in May. So I have, but in any case, I have one apple every night. It's just a habit. So then this shows you, this is an interesting little thing. I don't know if you can see this side. You are what you eat. It's foods that resemble organs they're good for. And carrots, if you slice a carrot, it's good for your eyes, and that's the iris. If you open a little walnut, looks like a little brain, and walnuts are good for your brain and Alzheimer's, Grapes in clusters are good for the lungs. As you go further into the lungs, there's little alveoli and clusters of bronchioles. Tomato, if you cut a tomato, so interesting. It looks like the slice when you cut a heart, and tomatoes are good for the heart. Anyway, I just thought this was kind of interesting. Avocados, it's good for the uterus. That's the shape. Kidney beans, good for the kidneys. That's the shape. Kind of coincidental, I don't know. So your list also has raw nuts and seeds that are good. I mean, the Bible, what did it say originally? We should have fruits, vegetables, seed-bearing plants, herbs. It's the original Garden of Eden diet. What beans are good for your herbs and spices, some condiments. They say the color condiments are the ones that are not good for you. You get hypertension, like mustard and ketchup and relish. The things that are colored in condiments contribute to high blood pressure or have more salt. So I think there's one more slide. Suggestions of superfoods and spirulina, and there's some gluten-free grains if you want, and dairy-free milks and beverages. You can look at that. So in ending on a serious note, you need to ask yourself if you're experiencing any of the following 5 symptoms of inflammation. These are 5 most common symptoms. Do you ever see some poor people, I feel so sorry for them when you've seen their legs are so swollen and they can't seem to find anybody that can make it better, But you can test if you're, if you have edema on your leg, like your doctor does when you go. You just take your thumb and you press up and down your shins and you hold it there a minute and just go up and down. And if it stays, that's pitting edema. You should be able to press pretty hard and it should pretty much spring back. But if you press and you can go up and down and you get all these gullies that stay there, you're retaining too much fluid. That's edema. That's like inflammation. So it's swelling of body parts, usually seen in the extremities, because the body's producing an overabundance of white blood cells, and all the fluid associated with those cells has to go somewhere, and it's seeping out. And due to gravity, the most common body parts to swell because of inflammatory diseases are the feet and the legs. So if your feet are often swollen, probably should check with your doctor about getting a screening for inflammatory disease. Then you also have the swelling due to inflammatory disease isn't limited just to the hands and feet. Sometimes fluids can build up in other areas of your body. Do you ever see somebody like kind of they're like just doing their neck a lot or doing their shoulders or their back? It's like, so you may not be aware it doesn't not as outstanding as your feet, but it builds up in areas like the lower back. You can also press on lower back and see, is this stay here? Is there a little gully or divot that stays there? The neck, the shoulders, I think one of the most common complaints that physicians hear about is neck and shoulder pain. So while this is most often assumed to be lifestyle or stress related, certain inflammatory diseases can cause chronic neck and back pain. So if you've tried all the remedies you can get your hands on, but still have a sore neck or back, again, ask your doctor about inflammation or inflammatory diseases. Then the swelling associated with inflammatory disease, known as edema, most commonly affects the hands and feet. Do you ever see like you'll have a ring on, or you try to put a ring on, or some days you're like, wow, my hands are tight, yeah, or your feet. So this can often be extreme and lead to visibly swollen and engorged hands and feet. Sometimes the swelling can be mild to moderate and not visible to naked eye, but this type of swelling causes soreness. So chronically sore hands and feet can be a sign that you're suffering from inflammatory disease. If pain medication, which I don't recommend, doesn't relieve the pain, then you've most likely got inflammation. In many cases, inflammatory diseases don't present with the usual swelling-related symptoms most people think of, when they think of inflammation. But inflammatory diseases can sometimes cause more generalized symptoms instead, like headaches, fatigue, chills, loss of energy, or appetite. So if you consistently suffer from any of these symptoms, but you're otherwise healthy, then that could mean that you have a mild inflammatory disease. Again, want to discuss it with your doctor. Many types of joint pain are caused by inflammatory diseases. The extra fluid that can build up as a result of inflammatory disease can put pressure on the joints, causing pain and tenderness. And you touch somewhere and you're like, oh, no, why should that hurt me? I didn't do anything. I wasn't washing walls or whatever. But several types of arthritis are associated with inflammatory diseases. And more research is finding links between the two conditions. So as with all symptoms on this list, again, talk to your doctor if you think any of these symptoms could be a sign of a generalized inflammatory disease. I am sure and totally convinced that our Creator's original plan was not for us to suffer physical illnesses on this earth, but we are given choices moment by moment. Do you drink a pop or ask for water? Do you turn off the TV at bedtime and read something uplifting? Do you pull into McDonald's or pull out the apple and banana that you put in the car? Choices, choices, choices. That's what it's all about, because we were created with total freedom. The Bible says that God wishes above all things that we would be healthy and prosperous. Well, your body is the temple of God, and it's all that God has to work with. So I could see how there would be a scam in the great controversy of, let's distract them, let's just snow them with sodium and bad things and, bad diet and bad, just sit around, don't be active. So it's all God has to use. So just, love yourself as much as God loves you and make prayerful choices in all that you do. So I'll thank you for your time and attention, and then I always open the floor to any comments, suggestions, questions that you may have. If I don't know the information, I'd certainly, tell you when and where I'll find it for you. So I don't know if this has stimulated any thoughts or questions or experience that you've had. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, say for instance, you have congestive heart failure
Yeah.
and you're limited to liquids. How can you control that when you're really not trying to help? And how can you reduce the fluid from your heart?
Yeah. But what do you mean when you're limited to liquids? They don't put you on a liquid diet when you have congestive heart failure.
They limit you to,
Oh, limit your liquid intake. I thought you were saying you have to. Yeah, I mean, congestive heart failure is, I always say, the heart is the pump and the blood vessels are the plumbing. And when you have swelling, you get water in the basement because the pump is not effectively getting fluid up and out from the arteries. The veins go away from the heart, and the arteries come back to the heart. And so it's not from the basement, getting it, say, to the sump pump, to out the window somewhere, your kidneys, so you can get rid of fluid. So congestive heart failure, I mean, if the pump is sluggish, you know, it's a lot of physics behind it, especially if you have high blood pressure, then this pump is trying to push against the resistance of blood pressure. Blood pressure is when blood vessels are constricting, you know, so it's like a double whammy. So, you know, congestive heart failure is just, it just can't do its job. And so, but people can kind of go in and out. Usually see in the emergency room, like I did emergency room today from 6 this morning. Normally I'd be there till 6 tonight, but I came to do this, so you gave me a break. But after Easter, typically people will come in, or after St. Patrick's Day, they've had what's that St. Patrick's food that people always have? Yeah, corned beef and cabbage. After Easter, a ham, people come in, they can't figure out, oh, my legs are swollen today. Okay, so did you have a ham yesterday or what, you know? But congestive heart failure, like I said, it's just ineffective, and you retain more fluid, and so they'll put you in the hospital, limit your intake, and diurese you. Trying to think of the different things that we would give, but anyway, to get rid of fluid. So you just go to the bathroom more and lose 3, 5, 10 pounds even. Oh no, that's fine. That's no problem. You want to limit the intake. Yeah, it's intake versus output, and the nurses are usually logging, measuring how much urine you're putting out and how much. Oh, well, that's the defective congestive heart failure. That's the pump. So they give you medications that can either slow down the pace of your heart, or speed up your heart rate, or make the force of contraction stronger because it's so weak. That's where all the medications come in.
And one more.
Uh-huh.
How do you stimulate your metabolism?
Stimulate it?
Yeah, to get it going, because mine's sort of like dragging, but I'm doing everything to
Yeah.
push myself, but I want it to come automatically.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's not just one thing. Like I always can say, I'm a New Start physician. That's nutrition, exercise, water, sun, trust, air, rest, and temperance. So it's many components. It's making yourself, be active even when you don't feel like it. I mean, I'll work 12, 14-hour days, and I don't let myself pull in the drive if I haven't hit my 10,000 steps this day. In my drive, I'll just stay outdoors and walk it. But in any case, it's the discipline of making yourself do things so you're active. Don't be sedentary. I mean, I could go into so many subjects. America has it all mixed up. People don't have breakfast. That's like starting your car in the morning, without gas. And the key thing is to have breakfast. You eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, supper like a pauper. We don't even need 3 meals a day. 2 meals would do it. A good breakfast, you shouldn't eat anything 5 hours in between, because research shows you empty the stomach after 5 hours of digestion. So we're overworking our stomachs anyway. And most of America, no breakfast, fast food, lunch, can't wait to get home to have a big meal to sit in front of the TV. So that's just sluggishing your metabolism. It's lifestyle, activity, it's, getting enough sleep, it's drinking water, it's so many factors to... you don't necessarily need vitamins. People think, oh, I'm not taking a vitamin. But if you eat well balanced,
For the thyroid is iodine. Even if you take Synthroid, your food, the metabolism,
Mhm.
iodine.
I think that's in kelp. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sea salt.
Uh-huh.
So you can get it normally. But also everybody forgets because they take the...
I know they take medicines. It makes me think too, it's like they put people on blood thinners. And when you're on blood thinners, they'll tell you, don't have things with vitamin K in them, like spinach or whatever. Well, why take the medicine? Why don't you take the foods that are high in vitamin K? But it doesn't. Yes, Joyce.
Yes,
Or Joy.
regarding joints, is it possible to have such chronic inflammation that you can destroy your cartilage?
Well, that's what happens little by little. Yeah. I mean, it's called erosion. It's just, it's... That's why they do knee replacements and hip replacements. Not particularly. You can try and keep it strong with calcium and vitamin D and, things in your diet. But, yes, ma'am. Well, there's various recommendations and postmenopausal. They say we should start, like gals, 12-year-olds on vitamin D, and calcium. But in any case, a minimum of 1,000, if you say you're over 50 or 60, 2,000 international units a day. So maybe take 1,000 in the morning, 1,000 in the evening. They're little tiny tablets. It's like $5 for 200 or something at Walgreens. Not very expensive. Yes, I'll get there. Mhm.
This is going back to like no intake on vitamins if we're having a nutritional balanced meal. But would that also pertain to probiotics?
Oh, I didn't mention probiotics. I don't know enough about them, and I wanted to talk about this. Debbie said, "What do you want to talk? Inflammation or this?" And I was like, "There's a whole new science called probiomes, which is the study of the bacteria in the gut, and everybody's is different. And so when you change the balance of your gut, like you'll eat something or you'll travel somewhere or you get a bug, you see for days and days and days, it's like, I'm going to the bathroom, it's not regular, what's going on? When is this going to change, the diarrhea? So probiotics, I think at any point, is a pretty much good idea, But vitamins, the only vitamins that you accumulate in your body that are fat soluble are A, D, E, and K. So you can get toxic on those, so you don't want to have too much. But vitamin C, you could pump it in all day, and it's just going to come out through your kidneys into urine, plus other vitamins. The only ones, those are all water soluble, and you just can take as many amounts, and it won't hurt. But people can get vitamin A and like beta carotene stuff. So in any case, probiotics, I think there's a yogurt, who is it? Chobani, there's a yogurt out. They just came out with, many of them are coming out with a liquid yogurt with probiotics in it. So I don't have the whole thing at any one point. I usually take, whatever I add, I take a little each day of whatever I'm adding to my diet.
Do you partner that up with a prebiotic?
I haven't, unless there's, I've had a wipeout of bacteria, like you'll take antibiotics for something and it just changes your whole normal flora. And then people get Clostridium difficile, which is you got bad diarrhea and it forms webs in your intestines. And did you have a question? Yes.
What is the better vitamin D form? The one that you dissolve in your mouth or the one that you swallow?
I don't know. They say things that are taken sublingual seem to be better absorbed, but it's also faster. But I think either is okay. It's vitamin D3 is the one you want. Yeah.
With K?
With K? With potassium? Or I don't know that was available. Okay.
What do you think about the vitamin D3 liquid?
It's probably okay too. Anything that we could take vitamin D. You want to get it best from the sun, but not between 11 and 2, they say. So, yes, ma'am.
Do you recommend just getting your vitamin D checked before you start taking vitamin D, or should you just start taking it?
That's probably the reasonable, logical thing to do. I don't know that you'll do much harm, but because it's so rare that a person even has a normal vitamin D, much less anything that's on the high end. But if you have the opportunity to get blood work, just tell your doctor, hey, you're drawing blood anyway, throw in I want to know my vitamin D3 level, And then both you and your physician can determine how much you should add, daily. But the more you can add through natural foods, but we're so low as a society in vitamin D. Anybody else, any thoughts, comments, questions, anything? Okay, well, you can catch me. I'll be around, or you see me around here every so often if I can do anything to, two heads are better than one. Thanks for your attention. I enjoyed it very much.